Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The Manhattan skyline blazed against the twilight sky as Vanessa Reed stepped from her black Bentley Bentayga onto Fifth Avenue's pristine sidewalk. 8 years had forged her transformation from a broken, pregnant woman clutching divorce papers to the CEO of Aurora Enterprises, a $500 million empire bearing her middle name. Tonight marked more than a return to the city that witnessed her destruction. She returned as its conqueror. "Miss Reed, the penthouse is ready for your arrival," her assistant, Ethan, spoke softly into his earpiece as he held the car door. "Lucas and the children landed 20 minutes ago. They're waiting for you." Vanessa's heart warmed at the mention of Lucas Bennett and her triplets, her family, the family that had risen from the ashes of Nathan Cole's betrayal. "Tell them I'll be up in 10 minutes. I need a moment." As Ethan nodded and stepped back, Vanessa tilted her head upward, scanning the towering building. Sterling Tower, 50 floors of glass and steel, now crowned by her company's logo across the top 3 levels. Nathan's offices occupied floors 12 through 15. The sweet irony wasn't lost on her. 8 years ago, I couldn't even afford a studio apartment in Queens. Tonight, I own the penthouse of Manhattan's most exclusive tower. The memories crashed over her like waves against a storm-battered shore. She had been 24, fresh out of Columbia Business School with her MBA, starry-eyed and desperately in love with Nathan Cole. He had been 27, charming, ambitious, and completely broke. But Vanessa had seen potential in him, brilliant potential that just needed the right foundation. "Marry me, Vanessa." Nathan whispered against her lips that night in their tiny apartment. The engagement ring he couldn't afford. Glinting in their candle-lit dinner's glow, "I'm going to build an empire, and I want you beside me as my queen." She said yes without hesitation, her heart so full she thought it might burst. What followed were 3 years of pure magic. Nathan's tech startup, Cole Ventures, flourished with $50 million from Vanessa's trust fund, money she gave freely, believing in their shared dream. Her family's business and political connections opened doors Nathan's charm alone couldn't reach. "We're going to change the world together," he used to say, holding her close in their penthouse bed, the penthouse her money had purchased. "You and me against everything, baby." Vanessa's hand unconsciously moved to her stomach as she remembered the joy on Nathan's face when she'd told him about the pregnancy. Triplets, their miracle babies, conceived during a romantic weekend in the Hamptons in the beach house. Her family owned 3 babies. Nathan had laughed, spinning her around their living room. "Our own little empire starts right here, Mrs. Cole. I love you so damn much." For 4 months, they had been blissfully happy. Nathan would talk to her belly every night, promising their unborn children the world. He designed 3 nurseries, bought tiny business suits as a joke, and spent hours reading pregnancy books. Then everything changed. Chloe Harper had started as Nathan's secretary when Vanessa was 5 months pregnant. Young, blonde, ambitious, and completely without morals. At first, Vanessa had felt sorry for the girl, a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She'd even helped Chloe get better health insurance through Nathan's company. The betrayal had been swift and brutal. Vanessa's breath caught as she remembered that November afternoon. She had come home early from her prenatal appointment, glowing from seeing her babies on the ultrasound, eager to share the pictures with Nathan. She had found them in their the bed, where Nathan had whispered his love to her just that morning. "It's not what it looks like," Nathan had stammered, scrambling for his clothes, while Chloe pulled the sheet around herself with a satisfied smirk. But it was exactly what it looked like. And it had been going on for months. "I'm in love with her, Vanessa," Nathan had said 2 days later, his voice cold and detached as he handed her the divorce papers. "This marriage was a mistake. You're too intense, too controlling. Clue makes me feel free. Free, as if loving him completely had been a prison." "What about our babies?" Vanessa had whispered, her hand protectively covering her swollen belly. "I'll pay child support, obviously, but I can't be tied down by this. I'm building something important here, and I need a partner who understands that." The legal battle had been swift and merciless. Nathan's lawyers, paid for with her money, had frozen her accounts, claiming she was emotionally unstable and a flight risk. They had painted her as a gold digger who had trapped Nathan with pregnancy, conveniently forgetting that she was the one with the money and he was the one who had come from nothing. By the time she was 8 months pregnant, Vanessa had lost everything. The penthouse, the cars, the life she had built. Nathan had somehow managed to keep all the assets, claiming they were business investments rather than marital property. Her own family's lawyers were fighting back, but legal battles took time she didn't have. She had been alone, staying in a cramped studio apartment in Queens, working 3 part-time jobs to pay for basic prenatal care, when her water broke 6 weeks early. The night that nearly killed her, Vanessa closed her eyes, phantom pain echoing from those 42 hours of labor alone in a city hospital. No epidural because she couldn't afford it. No hand to hold. No voice offering encouragement. Lila came first, tiny and fighting. Then Ivy, quiet and peaceful. Noah had been breached, complications setting in. Her blood pressure spiked. Her heart stopped twice. And for 10 terrifying minutes, doctors thought they would lose both mother and baby. "Ma'am, you need to call someone," the nurse had said afterward, when Vanessa was barely conscious, 3 tiny babies in the NICU fighting for their lives. "You can't do this alone." But she was alone. Nathan had remarried Chloe in a lavish ceremony in the Maldives, while Vanessa was learning to breastfeed 3 premature babies. Her mother, Judge Margaret Reed, had flown in from Washington to theride.com. But professional obligations meant she couldn't stay long. Those first 2 years had been hell. 3 babies, no money, no support system, working impossible hours just to afford formula and diapers. Vanessa had lost 30 pounds. She couldn't afford to lose. Survived on coffee and determination, and cried herself to sleep every night in exhaustion and heartbreak. Then Lucas Bennett had walked into her life like a guardian angel. She had been working the night shift at an upscale hotel restaurant, balancing plates while her babies stayed with a neighbor who charged by the hour. Lucas had been there for a business dinner, and when she'd slipped on a wet floor, sending a tray of expensive wine crashing to the ground, he hadn't yelled or demanded a manager. He had helped her up, paid for the broken bottles, and asked if she was okay. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," he had said softly, his blue eyes kind and concerned. "Whatever you're going through, it won't last forever." 2 weeks later, he had returned, asking for her by name, then again and again, never pushing, never demanding anything, just being present. When he'd finally learned about her situation, 3 babies, 3 jobs, an ex-husband who had stolen her life, Lucas had done something extraordinary. He had helped her reclaim everything. Lucas's connections in tech and finance, combined with his patient guidance and unlimited resources, had helped Vanessa build Aurora Enterprises from nothing. Her brilliant business mind, sharpened by desperation and fueled by determination, had taken every opportunity he provided and multiplied it tenfold. But more than that, Lucas had loved her completely, patiently, beautifully. He had held her when the nightmares came, played with her children like they were his own, and slowly, carefully, helped her learn to trust again. Now, standing outside Sterling Tower, Vanessa smiled as she remembered last week's magazine cover. Forbes had featured Nathan as the self-made billionaire of the year, detailing his meteoric rise from startup founder to tech mogul. The article had gushed about his natural business instincts, his innovative strategies, his empire built from nothing. Every word had been a lie. Vanessa pulled out her phone and scrolled to the photo she had saved. Nathan's arrogant smile stared back at her from the glossy cover. Posed in his corner office, wearing a $10,000 suit, every inch the successful CEO. The caption read, "Cole. Building tomorrow's world today. Building it with my money, my connections, my dreams," Vanessa thought, her dark eyes hardening with purpose. "Time to collect what you owe me, Nathan, with interest." She had already begun the process. Aurora Enterprises had quietly acquired several of Nathan's key clients over the past 6 months. Her mother, now a federal judge, had connections throughout the SEC, who were very interested in reviewing some of Nathan's more questionable business practices. And Lucas's brother, Julian, an investigative journalist with the Wall Street Journal, was preparing an expose that would shatter Nathan's self-made narrative forever. But the real revenge wouldn't be business or legal. It would be personal. It would be watching Nathan realize that the empire he thought he had built was nothing more than a house of cards, and she held all the wins. "Miss Reed," Ethan appeared at her elbow. Lucas called, "The children are getting restless. Lila's practicing her presentation for tomorrow's school fundraiser, and Noah's asking when you're coming up for story time." Vanessa's expression softened instantly. Her babies, 7 years old now, brilliant and beautiful and everything good in her world. Nathan had no idea they existed. She had made sure of that. In his mind, She had disappeared completely after the divorce, probably failing and struggling somewhere he didn't have to think about. Tomorrow night, all of that would change. "Tell them I'm on my way up," Vanessa said, her voice warm with love and anticipation. "And, Ethan, confirm my attendance at the Sterling Charity Gala tomorrow evening. Make sure the press knows Aurora Enterprises will be making a significant donation." "How significant, ma'am?" Vanessa's smile was sharp as a blade. $10 million. I want to make sure I have everyone's attention when I make my grand entrance." As she walked toward the elevator that would take her up to her penthouse, to Lucas and her children, and the life she had built from ashes, Vanessa felt the thrill of anticipation course through her veins. Tomorrow night, Nathan Cole would see exactly what he had thrown away, and then, systematically and beautifully, she would take back everything he had stolen from her. The phoenix had risen. Now it was time to burn down the old world and build a better one from its ashes. Chapter 2. Angels and Demons. The grand ballroom sparkled like a fairy tale, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across marble floors. As Manhattan's elite glittered in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, the annual Sterling Charity Gala represented the social event of the season, where billion-dollar deals were whispered over champagne and hierarchies established with military precision. Vanessa stood at the entrance, her hand resting gently on Lucas's arm as they surveyed the scene before them. She wore a stunning midnight blue gown by Valentino, the fabric hugging her curves like liquid silk before flowing into an elegant train. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears, Lucas's gifts, given not to impress others but to celebrate the woman he adored. Her natural hair was swept into an elaborate updo that showcased her graceful neck, and her dark skin seemed to glow with an inner radiance that had nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with happiness. Beside her, Lucas looked devastating in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. But what made her feel truly beautiful was the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in existence. At 34, Lucas commanded attention wherever he went. Tech success had made him a billionaire by 30, but wealth hadn't softened him. The former Navy SEAL still carried himself with military precision, broad shoulders and confident stance, speaking to years of discipline and honor. Yet, when he looked at Vanessa and her children, steel blue eyes melted with such tenderness it stole her breath. "You ready for this, sweetheart?" Lucas murmured against her ear, his voice warm and reassuring. "Once we walk in there, there's no going back." "I've been ready for 8 years," Vanessa replied softly. Turning to look at their children, Lila, Ivy, and Noah stood beside them, impeccably dressed and absolutely adorable. At 7, they already showed distinct personalities that filled Vanessa's heart with pride. Lila wore a sophisticated navy dress, matching her serious, intelligent demeanor. She'd inherited Vanessa's business mind and could discuss stock portfolios with adults twice her age. Ivy floated in soft pink that complemented her artistic soul. Wild curls adorned with tiny flowers she'd insisted on adding. Noah, fierce and spirited like her mother, wore bold red and stood, chin raised, ready to conquer the world. "Papa Lucas," Lila said, adjusting his cufflinks with careful precision, "you look very handsome tonight." "Mama looks like a princess," Ivy added. Lucas's smile was radiant as he crouched down to Lila's level. "Thank you, beautiful girl. But you 3 are the real princesses here. You're going to steal everyone's hearts tonight." "Just like we stole yours?" Ivy asked with the innocent directness that children possessed, making both Vanessa and Lucas laugh. "Exactly like that," Lucas said, pressing a gentle kiss to Ivy's forehead before doing the same to Lila and Noah. "You stole my heart from the very first day I met you." Vanessa's throat tightened with emotion as she watched the man she loved with her children. It hadn't always been this easy, this natural. When Lucas first entered their lives, the girls had been wary, protective of their small family unit, but Lucas had been patient, never pushing, never trying to replace anyone in their hearts, simply making space for himself with gentle consistency. 2 years ago, after a year of careful courtship and family bonding, Lucas had officially adopted the triplets. Vanessa would never forget that day in the courthouse, watching him sign the papers that made him their legal father, while tears streamed down his face. "I'm honored to be your dad," he had whispered to each of them afterward. "Not because biology says I have to be, but because I choose to be every single day." Lila had responded with typical practicality. "We choose you too, Papa Lucas. You're the best daddy we could ask for." Ivy had simply climbed into his lap and fallen asleep, the ultimate expression of trust. Noah had been the most emotional. "You're never going to leave us, right? Promise?" "I promise, little warrior." I'm never going anywhere. We're a family forever now. 2 years later, they were more than a family. They were a perfectly synchronized unit built on love, trust, and mutual devotion. Shall we make our entrance? Lucas asked, offering Vanessa his arm again while the children positioned themselves beside them. As they walked into the ballroom, conversation didn't exactly stop, but it shifted, becoming more hushed and speculative. Aurora Enterprises was a relatively new player in Manhattan's elite circles, but Vanessa's meteoric rise and mysterious background had made her a fascinating figure. Add in Lucas Bennett's obvious devotion and 3 gorgeous, well-behaved children, and they were the evening's most intriguing guests. Vanessa Reed, a warm voice called out, and they were approached by Harold Vanderbilt, the 80-year-old patriarch of one of Manhattan's oldest families. His eyes twinkled with genuine pleasure as he took Vanessa's hands in his weathered ones. "My dear, you look absolutely radiant. And Lucas, good to see you, son. Mr. Vanderbilt." Vanessa smiled genuinely. Harold had been one of her first allies when she'd begun building Aurora Enterprises, recognizing her brilliance and offering guidance without condescension. "Thank you for the invitation. I'd love you to meet my daughters." "Oh, the famous triplets." Harold's entire face lit up as he looked down at the children. "I've heard so much about you 3 brilliant young ladies." Lila stepped forward with a small curtsy that made Harold chuckle. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Vanderbilt. Thank you for inviting us to your charity event. Mama says you're raising money for children's education programs." "Indeed we are, young lady. Very impressive manners." Ivy offered him a small painting she had made specifically for the evening, a watercolor of 3 flowers growing from the same stem. "This is for you," she said shyly. "Mama says you like art." Harold accepted the painting with the reverence usually reserved for priceless masterpieces. "This is absolutely beautiful, Miss Ivy. I shall have it framed and hung in my study." Noah, not to be outdone, handed him a business card she had designed herself with crayons and glitter. "I'm Noah Bennett, and I'm going to be a superhero when I grow up. This has my qualifications." The business card listed her skills as flying, working on it, reading, martial arts Papa Lucas is teaching me, and protecting my family. Harold laughed delightedly, tucking the card into his jacket pocket. "Miss Noah, I believe you're already a superhero. Any young lady who can steal my heart in under 30 seconds clearly has superpowers." As the children charmed Harold and other nearby guests, Vanessa felt Lucas's hand settle on the small of her back, a gentle, possessive touch that sent warmth cascading through her. "You're incredible with them," she murmured, watching him help Noah with her small purse while simultaneously keeping an eye on Lila's animated conversation with a tech executive. "They're incredible kids," Lucas replied softly. "They make it easy, just like their mother." Before Vanessa could respond, a shift in the room's energy made her look toward the entrance. Her breath caught as Nathan Cole entered the ballroom, Chloe Harper Cole clinging to his arm like an expensive accessory. 8 years had changed Nathan, but not necessarily for the better. At 35, he was still handsome in that polished, corporate way-perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect tan that spoke of expensive vacations, but there was something hollow about him now, an emptiness behind his smile that even his tailored tuxedo couldn't disguise. He moved through the room with the confidence of a man who believed the world owed him everything, greeting other guests with the calculated charm of someone always working an angle. Chloe, now 29, had evolved from secretary to trophy wife with predictable precision. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. Her surgically enhanced figure poured into a red dress that screamed desperation for attention, and her smile was as artificial as everything else about her. She surveyed the room like a predator looking for prey, her eyes calculating net worth and social value with every glance. "Darling," Chloe was saying, loudly enough to be overheard, "remind me again why we had to come to this boring charity thing. Couldn't we have just written a check and gone to that new restaurant in Soho instead?" Nathan's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that his wife's shallow priorities embarrassed him. "Because networking is important for business, Chloe. Something you'd understand if you—" He stopped mid-sentence, his words dying in his throat as his gaze landed on Vanessa across the room. The effect was immediate and devastating. Nathan's face went completely white, then flushed red, as if he'd seen a ghost come to life. His hand gripped his champagne glass so tightly that Vanessa was surprised it didn't shatter. Chloe, oblivious to her husband's shock, continued chattering about restaurant reservations and weekend plans. But Nathan wasn't listening. He was staring at Vanessa with an expression of such raw hunger and regret that it made her stomach turn. "He's looking at me like he's drowning. and I'm the only life preserver in sight. Vanessa thought with grim satisfaction. Good. Let him drown. Lucas, ever perceptive, noticed the shift immediately. His hand tightened protectively on Vanessa's waist, and his body language shifted subtly, positioning himself slightly in front of her and the children without making it obvious. Years of military training had taught him to read threats, and right now, Nathan Cole was definitely a threat, maybe not physical, but emotional and psychological threats could be just as dangerous. Is that him? Lucas asked quietly, his voice carefully neutral, but his eyes hard as steel. That's him, Vanessa confirmed, her own voice steady despite the emotions churning in her chest. Across the room, Nathan had finally noticed Lucas and the children. His expression shifted from shocked hunger to confused pain as he took in the perfect family picture they presented. Lucas's protective stance, the children's obvious comfort and security, Vanessa's radiant happiness, it was everything Nathan had thrown away, rebuilt and perfected without him. "Daddy, who is that man staring at us?" Noah asked, her young voice cutting through the adult tension with uncomfortable clarity. At 7, she was old enough to sense when something was wrong, and her protective instincts, inherited from her mother, were already activating. Lucas immediately shifted his attention to Noah, crouching down to her level. "Just someone your mother used to know, Princess. Nothing for you to worry about. Papa's here, and nothing bad is going to happen to our family. Promise?" "Promise?" Noah asked, her small hand reaching for his larger one. "Promise," Lucas said firmly, pressing a kiss to her knuckles in a gesture so tender that several nearby guests smiled at the display of paternal devotion. Lila, ever observant, had followed the line of tension and spotted Nathan as well. "Mama," she said quietly, moving closer to Vanessa's side, "is that man making you sad?" Vanessa looked down at her eldest daughter's serious face and felt a fierce surge of maternal love. "No, baby girl, he can't make me sad anymore. I have you 3 and Papa Lucas. I have everything I need to be happy." "Good," Lila said with satisfaction, "because you deserve to be happy all the time." Out of the mouths of babes, Vanessa thought, her heart swelling with love for her perceptive daughter. The evening progressed with careful choreography, Nathan and Chloe circulating on one side of the ballroom while Vanessa's family stayed on the other. But Vanessa could feel Nathan's eyes on her constantly, a weight she had once welcomed but now found suffocating. As the charity auction began, Vanessa prepared to make her move. She had promised a $10 million donation for a reason. When the time came, when all eyes were on her, and her generosity was the talk of the evening, Nathan would finally understand that the broken woman he had abandoned no longer existed. In her place stood a phoenix, risen from the ashes of his betrayal, surrounded by a love more pure and powerful than anything they had ever shared. The war was about to begin. Chapter 3. Collision of Souls. The charity auction was in full swing when Nathan made his move. Vanessa had been bidding strategically throughout the evening. $50,000 for a Tuscan villa week, $75,000 for rare vintage wine, $100, for a private Grammy winner concert. Each bid calculated to showcase wealth without seeming ostentatious, building toward the moment that would change everything. Lucas stood beside her, his hand resting protectively on her lower back as they watched their children charm everyone around them. Lila was discussing investment portfolios with a hedge fund manager, who seemed genuinely impressed by her 7-year-old insights. Ivy had found kindred spirits in a group of art collectors, who were cooing over her watercolor sketches. Noah was regaling a retired general with her plans for a superhero academy where children could learn to protect their families. "They're going to rule the world someday," Lucas murmured against Vanessa's ear, his breath warm and comforting, just like their mother. Vanessa smiled, leaning into his solid warmth. "They already rule mine." The auctioneer's voice boomed across the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, our final item tonight is truly extraordinary. A week-long private island retreat in the Maldives, complete with staff, yacht, and helicopter access. Bidding starts at $1 million. This was it, Vanessa's moment. She raised her paddle immediately. $1 million. $2 million, called out a pharmaceutical heiress from across the room. $3 million. Vanessa responded without hesitation. The bidding war began in earnest. But Vanessa had no intention of losing. As the price climbed to $5 million, then $7 million, the crowd began to thin out, leaving only the most serious bidders. When it reached $9 million, only Vanessa and one other bidder remained. $9.5 million, the pharmaceutical heiress called out. Her voice strained. Vanessa stood up slowly. Every eye in the ballroom focused on her. She could feel Nathan's burning gaze from across the room, could sense the collective intake of breath as everyone waited to see what the mysterious CEO of Aurora Enterprises would do. 10 million, Vanessa said clearly, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. And I'd like to donate the retreat back to the charity for next year's auction. The ballroom erupted in applause and shocked murmurs. $20 million in one gesture, $10 million for the winning bid, and another $10 million in the donated value of the retreat. It was the single largest contribution in the gala's 50-year history. Harold Vanderbilt approached the microphone, his aged face beaming with admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, this extraordinary generosity from Miss Vanessa Reed and Aurora Enterprises will fund our children's education programs for the next 5 years. A true angel among us tonight. As the applause continued, Vanessa felt a familiar presence behind her, a scent that once meant home and now made her stomach clench with remembered pain. Hello, Vanessa. Nathan's voice was exactly as she remembered. Smooth. Confident. With that slight rasp that had once made her knees weak, now it just made her angry. Lucas immediately stepped closer, his military instincts on high alert, but Vanessa placed a gentle hand on his arm. It's okay, she murmured. I've got this. She turned slowly, deliberately, letting Nathan see every inch of the woman she'd become. Where once she'd been soft and trusting, now she was sharp and dangerous. Where once she'd looked at him with adoration, now her dark eyes held nothing but frost. Nathan, she said coolly, as if he were a stranger whose name she barely recalled. How unexpected. Up close, the 8 years showed more clearly. Nathan's eyes were still the same piercing green that had once made her heart race. But now they were shadowed with something that looked like desperation. His jaw was still strong, his smile still devastating when he chose to use it. But there were lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hollow victories. You look. Nathan started, then stopped, apparently overwhelmed by the transformation before him. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Vanessa replied with the same tone she might use to acknowledge a compliment from a waiter. I've been well. The understatement of the century hung between them like a blade. Nathan's eyes darted to Lucas, who was watching the interaction with the focused intensity of a predator. And you are? Nathan asked, extending his hand with false friendliness. Lucas didn't take the offered hand. Lucas Bennett, he said flatly, Vanessa's fiancé. The word hit Nathan like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, as the implications crashed over him. Not boyfriend, not partner fiancé. The woman he had thrown away like garbage was engaged to one of the most powerful men in Manhattan. Fiancé, Nathan repeated, the word sounding foreign in his mouth. Congratulations. Thank you, Lucas replied, his arms sliding around Vanessa's waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. We're very happy. Vanessa could see the exact moment Nathan noticed the children. His gaze shifted to Lila, Ivy, and Noah, who were standing close by. Watching this interaction with the shrewd intelligence that children often possessed, something flickered across Nathan's face, confusion, pain, and something that might have been longing. And these beautiful young ladies are? Nathan asked, his voice carefully casual. Our daughters, Vanessa said firmly, emphasizing the word our while looking directly into Nathan's eyes. Lila, Ivy, and Noah Bennett. Nathan flinched as if she had slapped him. Bennett, not Reed, not Cole Bennett. These children, Vanessa's children, belong to another man entirely. They're lovely, Nathan managed, his voice hoarse. How old are they? 7, Vanessa replied, watching his face carefully. She could see him doing the math, his expression growing more pained with each passing second. 7 years old, born after he had left her. Mama, Noah interrupted, stepping forward with the fearless confidence that was her trademark. Who is this man? Nathan's breath caught as he looked down at Noah. There was something about her fierce little face, the determined set of her jaw, the way she positioned herself protectively in front of her mother, that hit him like a lightning bolt. She looked like, this is Mr. Cole, Vanessa said smoothly. An old acquaintance, he was just leaving. But Nathan couldn't move. He was staring at Noah with an expression of growing wonder and horror. The dark hair, the strong jawline, the stubborn tilt of her chin. It was like looking at himself in miniature. Actually, Nathan said, his voice gaining strength, I was hoping we could talk privately. Vanessa, there's so much I want to say to you. So much I need to explain. There's nothing to explain, Vanessa replied, her voice like ice, and nothing to discuss. The past is the past, Nathan. I've moved on. But I haven't, Nathan said desperately, stepping closer. I've regretted leaving you every single day for 8 years. It was the biggest mistake of my life. When I saw you tonight, looking so beautiful, so successful, I realized that I never stopped loving you. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Lucas's entire body tensed, his hand moving protectively to Vanessa's hip. The children looked confused and slightly alarmed by the intensity of emotion crackling between the adults. How romantic. A sharp voice cut through the tension. Chloe had appeared at Nathan's side, her artificial smile not quite hiding the venom in her eyes. Aren't you going to introduce me to your old friend, darling? Nathan looked like he would rather eat glass. Chloe, this is Vanessa Reed. Vanessa, my wife, Chloe. Oh. Chloe's eyes widened with fake surprise. The ex-wife. How fascinating. I've heard so much about you. I'm sure you have, Vanessa replied smoothly. Though I suspect most of it was fiction. Chloe's smile turned predatory. Well, aren't you the success story? I remember Nathan mentioning that you were struggling after the divorce. Single mother, working multiple jobs, barely making ends meet. It's amazing how much can change in a few years. The insult was delivered with surgical precision, designed to humiliate and diminish. But Vanessa had faced down boardrooms full of ruthless executives and Senate subcommittees investigating corporate fraud. One bitter trophy wife was hardly a challenge. You're absolutely right, Vanessa said with a smile that could cut diamonds. Amazing how quickly things can turn around when you're not being held back by dead weight. The barb hit its mark. Nathan winced visibly, while Chloe's face flushed red with anger. Ladies and gentlemen, Harold Vanderbilt's voice boomed over the sound system. If I could have your attention for one final announcement. The ballroom quieted as all eyes turned to the stage, where Harold stood with a massive check made out to the Children's Education Foundation. Thanks to the extraordinary generosity of Miss Vanessa Reed and Aurora Enterprises, we have raised a record-breaking $27 million tonight. But more than that, we have witnessed the kind of philanthropy that changes lives and builds futures. Miss Reed, would you care to say a few words? Vanessa glanced at Lucas, who nodded encouragingly. She kissed each of her daughters on the forehead, whispered something that made them giggle, and walked toward the stage with the grace of a queen. As she took the microphone, every person in the ballroom was focused on her. She was luminous under the spotlights, powerful and beautiful, and completely in control. Thank you, Mr. Vanderbilt, she began, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. 8 years ago, I learned that sometimes life strips everything away, but I also learned that when you have nothing left to lose, you become capable of extraordinary things. Her eyes found Nathan in the crowd, and for a moment, they were the only two people in the room. Tonight, I'm reminded that our greatest failures often become foundations for our greatest successes. Sometimes, those who hurt us most end up giving us the most precious gifts, the chance to discover who we really are and what we're truly capable of achieving. She paused, letting the words sink in. The children we're helping tonight deserve to know that their circumstances don't define their potential, that they can rise above any betrayal, overcome any obstacle, and build something beautiful from even the most painful experiences. Because sometimes, when someone shows you their true nature, the best thing you can do is thank them for setting you free. The applause was thunderous, but Vanessa wasn't finished. She looked directly at Nathan as she delivered her final line. After all, you can't build a phoenix without first burning everything to the ground. As she left the stage, Vanessa felt the weight of Nathan's stare like a physical thing. She had just declared war in the most public way possible, and everyone in that room, including Nathan, knew it. The collision of their souls was complete. Now the real battle could begin. Chapter 4. The Children He Never Knew. 3 days after the charity gala, Nathan sat in his corner office on Sterling Tower's 15th floor, staring at a photograph from Manhattan Society magazine. The image showed Vanessa presenting the oversized check to Harold Vanderbilt. But Nathan's eyes weren't on his ex-wife. They were fixed on 3 little girls standing beside Lucas Bennett in the background. Noah Bennett, Lila Bennett, Ivy Bennett, 7 years old. Nathan's hands trembled slightly as he held the magazine closer, studying every detail of their faces. Noah's determined jawline that matched his own. Lila's serious expression that reminded him of Vanessa when she was focused on business. Ivy's artistic soul that seemed to shine through her gentle smile. His children. The certainty hit him like a physical blow. Even without DNA tests or birth certificates, the timeline was perfect. They would have been born roughly 6 months after he'd abandoned Vanessa. The resemblances were undeniable, especially in Noah, who looked like his clone with longer hair, and Vanessa's beautiful dark skin. The intercom buzzed, startling him from his obsessive study. "Mr. Cole, your wife is here to see you." Nathan quickly shoved the magazine into his desk drawer. "Send her in." Chloe swept into his office, wearing a designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary, her blonde hair perfectly styled, despite the fact that it was barely 10 o'clock a.m. She had the particular energy of someone who had been shopping and spending his money, which usually irritated Nathan, but today barely registered. "Darling," Chloe purred, settling into the chair across from his desk with practiced grace. "I've been thinking about Saturday night. That charity thing was such a bore. But did you see how desperate that ex-wife of yours was for attention? 20 million. So obvious." "Obvious?" Nathan found himself defending Vanessa before he could stop himself. "She donated to charity. How was that obvious?" Chloe's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Oh, please, Nathan. It was clearly a power play. She was trying to show everyone how rich she is now. Probably borrowed it from that boyfriend of hers. Fiancé." Nathan corrected automatically. "Whatever." Chloe waved a dismissive hand. "The point is, she was obviously trying to make you jealous. Did you see how she kept looking at you during her little speech? She's still hung up on you, darling. It's actually kind of pathetic." Nathan stared at his wife in amazement. Had they been at the same event? Vanessa had barely acknowledged his existence, except to make it clear that she'd moved on completely. If anything, she had looked at him with the kind of cold dismissal usually reserved for particularly annoying insects. "I don't think that's what was happening," Nathan said slowly. Chloe leaned forward, her eyes lighting up with the cruel excitement of someone about to deliver gossip. "Oh, but wait until you hear what I found out about those children of hers. I did a little digging yesterday." Nathan's entire body went rigid. "What kind of digging?" "Well, you know how I am with social media investigation," Chloe said proudly. "Turns out that Lucas Bennett isn't their biological father. He adopted them 2 years ago, but there's no record of who the real father is. The birth certificates are sealed, which usually means something scandalous. Maybe she doesn't even know who the father is. Wouldn't that be delicious?" Nathan felt sick. The casual cruelty in Chloe's voice, the way she was talking about his children she didn't even know were his maid, him want to throw her out of his office. When had she become so vicious? Had she always been this way, and he just hadn't noticed? "That's enough," Nathan said firmly. "I don't want to hear any more gossip about Vanessa or her family." Chloe looked shocked. "Her family? Nathan, what's gotten into you? Saturday night, you couldn't stop staring at her, and now you're defending her honor like some kind of knight in shining armor. She's your ex-wife, not some innocent maiden. She's the mother of 3 children, Nathan snapped. "Children who don't deserve to be the subject of your petty gossip. Since when do you care about other people's children?" Chloe shot back, her mask of sweetness finally slipping. "You've made it perfectly clear that you never want kids of our own. In fact, you've been downright hostile about the idea." Nathan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. She was right. He had been adamant about not wanting children with Chloe, always claiming that kids would interfere with his business goals and lifestyle. But the truth was more complicated. Every time Chloe brought up having babies, all he could think about was the children he might have had with Vanessa's family he had thrown away. "This conversation is over," Nathan said, turning back to his computer. "I have work to do." Chloe stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Fine, but don't think I don't know what's happening here, Nathan. You're having some kind of midlife crisis fantasy about your perfect ex-wife and her perfect little family. But let me remind you of something. You chose me. You left her for me, and I won't be discarded just because you're feeling nostalgic." After she left, slamming the door behind her, Nathan pulled the magazine back out of his drawer. This time, he studied the photo more carefully, focusing on the family dynamics visible in the background image. Lucas had his hand on Noah's shoulder while she showed him something in a small notebook, probably her superhero plans. Lila was standing close to Vanessa, their heads bent together as they whispered about something that made them both smile. Ivy was holding Lucas's other hand, her face turned up toward him with complete trust and adoration. It was a picture of a perfect family, a family that should have been his. By lunchtime, Nathan had made a decision that would have horrified his rational mind if he'd been thinking clearly. He left his office and drove to the exclusive private school that he discovered the children attended. Information that had cost him a significant bribe to a private investigator, but money was no object when it came to learning about his daughters. Sterling Preparatory Academy was exactly the kind of school Nathan had dreamed of sending his children to someday. Ivy, covered brick buildings, perfectly manicured grounds, and the kind of security that ensured only the children of Manhattan's elite walked these halls. The fact that Vanessa could afford to send 3 children here simultaneously was another reminder of just how successful she had become. Nathan parked across the street and waited. He told himself he just wanted to see them again, to confirm what he already knew in his heart. He wasn't planning to approach them or interfere with their lives. He just needed to see his children. At 3:15 p.m., the school doors opened, and students began streaming out. Nathan's heart nearly stopped when he spotted them immediately. 3 little girls walking together toward the pickup area. Lila carried what looked like a science project. Ivy had a paint-splattered smock over her uniform, and Noah was animatedly explaining something that required extensive hand gestures. They were beautiful, perfect. Everything he had lost and didn't even know existed. A familiar figure appeared in the pickup line, Lucas Bennett, driving a black Range Rover and wearing casual clothes that somehow made him look even more devastatingly handsome than he had in a tuxedo. Nathan watched with growing resentment as his children's faces lit up at the sight of the man they called father, Papa Lucas. Noah broke away from her sisters and ran toward the car, launching herself into Lucas's arms with complete trust that he would catch her. Lucas spun her around, laughing at whatever she was telling him, before setting her down and crouching to her level to give her his full attention. Lila and Ivy approached more calmly, but their faces showed the same joy and love that Noah's did. Nathan watched Lucas help each girl into the car, making sure their seatbelts were properly fastened, listening to their chatter about their day, responding to their questions with patience and genuine interest. It was everything Nathan had imagined doing with his own children someday, and Lucas was doing it with natural ease and obvious love. As the Range Rover pulled away from the school, Nathan made another impulsive decision. He followed them. The drive led to Central Park, where Lucas parked near the playground. Nathan watched from his car as his family, because that's what they were. He realized, with painful clarity, spent the afternoon playing together. Lucas pushed Ivy on the swings while Lila showed off her monkey bar skills, and Noah challenged other children to races around the playground. It was domestic and perfect, and everything Nathan had never appreciated when he'd had the chance to build it himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. "Dinner at Cipriani tonight with the Hendersons. Don't be late." Nathan stared at the message, then at the scene in front of him. Lucas was now helping all 3 girls build an elaborate sandcastle, his expensive clothes forgotten as he knelt in the dirt beside them. Their laughter carried across the playground, bright and joyful, and completely unself-conscious. Nathan deleted Chloe's text without responding. For 2 hours, he watched his children play with the man who had taken his place in their lives. Lucas was everything Nathan hadn't been. Patient, present, completely focused on the children's happiness rather than his own ambitions. When Ivy scraped her knee on the slide, Lucas cleaned and bandaged it with supplies from what was obviously a well-stocked first aid kit in his car. When Lila got frustrated with a math problem she was working on, Lucas sat beside her on a bench and helped her work through it step by step. When Noah challenged him to a race, Lucas ran with her, letting her win but making it look like genuine competition. As the sun began to set, Nathan watched Lucas gather up their things while the girls helped clean up the playground area. Clearly a family rule about leaving places better than they found them. Before they left, Lucas pulled all 3 girls into a group hug that made Nathan's chest ache with jealousy and loss. That night, Nathan couldn't focus on dinner with the Hendersons. He barely heard Chloe's complaints about the restaurant service or her plans for their upcoming vacation to Monaco. All he could think about were 3 little girls who called another man Papa and had no idea their biological father was desperately watching them from the shadows. When they got home to their penthouse, the penthouse that Vanessa's money had originally purchased, Nathan went straight to his study and opened his laptop. It was time to learn everything he could about the children he had never known existed. The children who should have been his but belonged to Lucas Bennett instead. The children who represented everything he had lost when he'd chosen ambition over love and shallow attraction over the deep connection he'd shared with their mother. His beautiful daughters, who were growing up without him, loved by a better man than he had ever been. Nathan's obsession had officially begun. Chapter 5. Truth in Innocent Eyes. The private investigator's report landed on Nathan's desk at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday that would shatter everything. The manila envelope was thicker than expected, and his hands trembled as he broke the seal. For 3 weeks, He'd been paying Peterson Investigations an exorbitant sum to uncover the truth about Vanessa's children, and now that truth lay literally in his hands. He spread the documents across his mahogany desk, his heart pounding as he began to read. Birth certificates, hospital records, medical files, financial records from those early years when Vanessa had struggled as a single mother. The first document confirmed what Nathan already knew in his soul. Lila Reed, Ivy Reed, and Noah Reed had been born on the 15th of March, 8 years ago, at Mount Sinai Hospital triplets, born 6 weeks premature, to Vanessa Reed, age 24, father listed as unknown, but the hospital records told a different story. Nathan's name appeared throughout Vanessa's medical files as emergency contact, insurance beneficiary, next of kin during her pregnancy. She'd listed him as the father on all preliminary paperwork. Only after their divorce was finalized, while she was 7 months pregnant, had his name been systematically removed and replaced with unknown. Nathan's breathing became labored as he read the birth summary. Emergency cesarean due to preeclampsia and fetal distress. Patient suffered cardiac arrest during delivery. Resuscitated after 4 minutes. Babies born critically premature, requiring immediate NICU care. 4 minutes. Vanessa had been dead for 4 minutes while giving birth to their children, alone in a hospital room. Because Nathan had been too busy honeymooning with Chloe to care what happened to the woman he'd abandoned. The financial records painted an even more devastating picture. In the months after the children's birth, Vanessa had worked 3 jobs while caring for premature triplets. Her credit cards had been maxed out paying for specialized formula, medications, and childcare. There were eviction notices, utility shutoffs, and medical bills that stretched into 6-figures all while Nathan had been living in luxury with Chloe, using Vanessa's trust fund money to expand his business empire, but it was the photographs that destroyed him completely. The investigator had obtained security footage from the hospital during those early weeks. Nathan stared at grainy black and white images of Vanessa sleeping in NICU chairs, her head pillowed on her arms as she maintained vigil beside 3 tiny incubators. Other photos showed her walking the halls at all hours, pumping breast milk in hospital rooms, meeting with doctors who delivered news that made her shoulders shake with silent sobs. She had been completely alone. The final photograph was a professional portrait taken when the babies were 6 months old. Vanessa's first family photo, she looked exhausted but radiant, holding 3 healthy, beautiful babies who had survived against the odds. Lila in a little yellow dress, Ivy in pink, Noah in purple. The love in Vanessa's eyes was unmistakable, but so was the haunted look of someone who had endured trauma that would mark her forever. Nathan's phone rang, jarring him from his horrified study of the documents. The caller ID showed it was his assistant, but Nathan couldn't bring himself to answer. His entire world was crashing down around him as the magnitude of his betrayal became crystal clear. He had 3 daughters, beautiful, brilliant daughters, who had nearly died because he hadn't been there when they needed him most. Daughters who had grown up in poverty while he lived in luxury. Daughters who called another man Papa because their real father had abandoned them before they were even born. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Cole, Miss Reed is here to see you. She says it's urgent." Nathan's blood turned to ice. Vanessa was here. Now, he quickly gathered up the investigator's files, shoving them into his desk drawer with shaking hands. "Send her in," he managed to say. When Vanessa walked through his office door, Nathan was struck anew by her transformation. She wore a perfectly tailored black suit that screamed power and sophistication, her hair pulled back in a severe bun that somehow made her look even more beautiful. But it was her eyes that made Nathan's breath catch. They were filled with a cold fury that he had never seen before. "Hello, Nathan," she said, her voice dangerously quiet as she closed the door behind her. "I think it's time we had a conversation." "Vanessa." "Sit down," she commanded, and something in her tone made Nathan obey immediately. "Do you know why I'm here?" Nathan's mouth was dry as sand. No." Vanessa walked to his desk and placed a single photograph on the polished surface. It was a picture of Nathan sitting in his car outside Sterling Preparatory Academy, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. "My children's school has excellent security," Vanessa said conversationally. "They take photos of anyone who seems to be lingering in the vicinity." Imagine my surprise when the head of security showed me this picture and asked if I knew why my ex-husband was stalking my daughters. Nathan stared at the photograph, his face burning with shame. "I wasn't stalking them. I wanted to see them." "See them?" Vanessa repeated slowly. "And why exactly would you want to see my children, Nathan? As far as you knew, they had nothing to do with you." The trap was perfectly laid, and Nathan walked right into it. "Because they're mine," he whispered, the words torn from his soul. "They're my daughters." Vanessa's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Ah, so you know. How long, Nathan? How long have you known that I figured it out?" "I've been waiting for you to figure it out since the charity gala," Vanessa replied, settling into the chair across from his desk with predatory grace. "It only took you 3 weeks. I'm honestly surprised it took that long. Noah looks exactly like you did at that age." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "Why didn't you tell me? When you found out you were pregnant, why didn't you tell me they were mine?" The question seemed to hang in the air like a loaded weapon. When Vanessa spoke, her voice was so quiet that Nathan had to strain to hear her. "I did tell you, Nathan. I told you I was pregnant with your children. I told you we were having triplets. I told you they were yours. Do you remember what you said to me?" Nathan's memory flashed back to that horrible day in their apartment, Vanessa sitting on their couch with tears streaming down her face, ultrasound pictures scattered on the coffee table. "You said," Vanessa continued, her voice growing stronger and more furious with each word, "that you couldn't be tied down by this, that you were building something important and couldn't be trapped by babies, that I was trying to manipulate you into staying with a pregnancy you probably planned. I didn't mean," you said, Vanessa's voice rose to a shout, "that even if the babies were yours, you didn't want them. You signed away your parental rights as part of the divorce settlement, Nathan. You legally abandoned 3 unborn children because you thought Chloe was a better investment." Nathan felt like he was drowning. "I was young. I was scared. He made a mistake." "A mistake?" Vanessa was on her feet now, her carefully controlled facade completely shattered. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store, Nathan. A mistake is being late for dinner. What you did was choose to destroy 4 lives because you decided we weren't worth the inconvenience. I know, and I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Vanessa laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Do you want to know what sorry looks like, Nathan? Sorry is giving birth to 3 babies, 6 weeks early, because the stress of your betrayal nearly killed me. Sorry is coding on the delivery table because my blood pressure spiked to stroke levels. Sorry is waking up in the ICU to find out that your daughters might not survive their first week of life." Nathan's face was white as paper. "They almost died?" "Noah stopped breathing twice in her first week." Vanessa continued relentlessly. "Lila had bleeding in her brain. Ivy couldn't regulate her body temperature. I spent 6 weeks sleeping in hospital chairs, pumping breast milk every 2 hours, and praying to God that my babies would live to see their first month. I didn't know. Because you didn't care to know." Vanessa slammed her hand on his desk, making Nathan jump. "You were too busy playing house with your secretary to give a damn about the family you destroyed. Where were your parents? Your family? Surely they helped. My father had just been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's," Vanessa said bitterly. "My mother was managing his care while trying to maintain her judicial career. They did what they could, but I was essentially alone with 3 critically ill infants." Nathan buried his face in his hands. "Jesus, Vanessa, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if you had known." "What?" Vanessa's voice was ice cold again. "You would have swooped in to play hero? You would have abandoned your new wife to help the woman you cheated on and discarded? Don't insult my intelligence, Nathan. I would have done something. I would have helped financially, at least." "With what money?" Vanessa asked sarcastically. "The money you stole from my trust fund? The money you used to build your precious empire while I was working 3 jobs and choosing between buying formula and paying the electric bill?" Nathan looked up at her in confusion. "I didn't steal from your trust fund. That money was invested in the business, our business. Our business that you kept entirely for yourself," Vanessa corrected. "Our business that was built on my family's connections and my financial foundation. Our business that you claimed as your sole creation the moment you decided I was disposable." The truth was starting to sink in, and Nathan felt sick. "Vanessa, tell me, Nathan, how much of Cole Ventures would exist without that initial $50 million from my trust fund?" Nathan couldn't answer, because they both knew the truth. His entire empire had been built on Vanessa's foundation, and he had spent years convincing himself that his own brilliance had been the key to his success. "I want to know them," Nathan said desperately. "I want to be their father." Vanessa's laugh was bitter and broken. "You gave up that right 8 years ago. Lucas Bennett is their father. He was there for their first steps, their first words, their first day of school. He's the one who sits up with them when they're sick, helps them with homework, and tells them bedtime stories. You're nothing to them but a stranger who's been following them around like a stalker. But I'm their biological father. Biology doesn't make you a father, Nathan." Vanessa's voice cracked with emotion. "Love makes you a father. Sacrifice makes you a father. Showing up every single day makes you a father. Lucas earned the right to be called Papa by 3 little girls who needed a dad. You forfeited that right when you chose your own selfish desires over your family's welfare. Nathan stood up, reaching toward her desperately. It doesn't have to be too late. I can change. I can be the father they deserve. We could try again. Vanessa stared at him in absolute amazement. There is no we, Nathan. There will never be a we again. I'm marrying Lucas Bennett in 6 months, and he's adopting my daughters legally. They'll be Bennett children in every way that matters. But they're mine. No, Vanessa said firmly. They're mine. I earned them through 42 hours of labor, 3 years of sleepless nights, and 8 years of being their mother. You contributed some DNA, and then disappeared. That doesn't make them yours. Nathan felt his world collapsing around him. Please, Vanessa, give me a chance to prove I've changed. Let me be part of their lives. The way you gave me a chance when I begged you not to leave, Vanessa asked quietly. The way you considered your pregnant wife's feelings when you were with your secretary in our bed. The crude words hit Nathan like a physical blow. Partly because Vanessa never swore and partly because they forced him to confront the brutal reality of what he had done. I was different then, Nathan pleaded. I'm not the same man who hurt you. You're right, Vanessa agreed, moving toward the door. You're worse. The man who left me was at least honest about being selfish. This version of you wants to assuage his guilt by disrupting the lives of 3 innocent children who are perfectly happy with the family they have. She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. Stay away from my daughters, Nathan. I won't ask again. And if I don't? Nathan asked. Desperation making him reckless, Vanessa turned back to him with a smile that was pure predator. Then you'll discover exactly how much power a woman scorned can wield when she has nothing left to lose. I've spent 8 years building an empire for one purpose, to make sure you can never hurt my family again. Don't test me. As the door closed behind her, Nathan collapsed into his chair, staring at the photograph she had left on his desk, him sitting in his car like a pathetic stalker, watching the children he had abandoned. For the first time in 8 years, Nathan Cole understood the true cost of his choices, and for the first time in his life, he realized that some mistakes could never be undone. His daughters were lost to him forever, and it was entirely his own fault. Chapter 6. Empire Built on Ashes. The war room at Aurora Enterprises resembled something from a military thriller. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic Manhattan views, but Vanessa's attention focused on wall-mounted screens displaying real-time financial data, news feeds, and corporate intelligence reports. 3 weeks had passed since her confrontation with Nathan, and now came the time to systematically dismantle everything he'd built on her stolen dreams foundation. Lucas stood beside her, his tablet displaying legal documents that would soon become Nathan's worst nightmare. At 34, Lucas had orchestrated hostile takeovers worth billions, but he had never seen anyone plan a corporate assassination with the precision and cold fury that Vanessa was demonstrating. The SEC filing goes live in 30 minutes, Lucas said, his voice steady and supportive. Once it's public, Nathan's going to know this isn't just about hurt feelings. This is about justice. Vanessa nodded, her dark eyes fixed on a photograph of Nathan from last week's business journal. He looked confident, successful, completely unaware that his empire was about to crumble. Good. I want him to understand that every single thing he thinks he's accomplished was built on stolen ground. Mama, Lila's voice came from the doorway, and Vanessa turned to see her eldest daughter standing there in her school uniform, her serious expression even more pronounced than usual. Miss, Rodriguez said I could come up after I finished my homework. Are you really going to destroy that man's company? Vanessa's war room demeanor softened instantly as she knelt to Lila's level. Her daughter was precocious beyond her 7 years, with an intelligence that sometimes startled adults and a curiosity about business that rivaled most MBA students. I'm going to correct an injustice, sweetheart, Vanessa explained carefully. Sometimes, when people take things that don't belong to them, you have to find a way to make things fair again. Like when Tommy Morrison stole Ivy's art supplies, and the teacher made him give them back. Like that? Lila asked. Exactly like that, Lucas interjected, moving to join them. Except this is grown-up stealing, and it requires grown-up consequences. Lila nodded gravely. Will it hurt him? The question hung in the air for a moment. Vanessa considered lying, but she had always been honest with her children about the complexities of the world. Yes, she said finally, it will hurt him, but sometimes people need to experience consequences for their actions, even if those consequences are painful. Good. Lila said with startling intensity. He made you cry. I remember when we were little. You used to cry at night when you thought we were sleeping. Nobody should make our mama cry. Vanessa's heart clenched at the realization that her daughters had been aware of her pain, even when she thought she had hidden it. That's all in the past now, baby girl. We have our family, we have Papa Lucas, and we're never going to let anyone hurt us again. Lila hugged her tightly, then looked up at Lucas. Papa, will you teach me about hostile takeovers after dinner? I want to understand how Mama is going to win. Lucas laughed, the sound warm and proud. I think we should start with regular math homework first, Princess. But yes, I'll explain some business concepts after you finish your regular schoolwork. As Lila skipped back to the family area of the penthouse, Vanessa's phone rang. Judge Margaret Reed's name appeared on the screen, and Vanessa answered immediately. Mama, Vanessa said, her voice warming with genuine affection for the woman who had supported her through the darkest period of her life. Baby girl. Margaret's voice was crisp and professional, but Vanessa could hear the underlying satisfaction. I wanted to let you know that the SEC has received our preliminary documentation. Your friend at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit was very interested in the evidence of trust fund misappropriation. How interested? Vanessa asked, putting the phone on speaker so Lucas could hear. Interested enough to open a formal investigation, Margaret replied. It seems that using someone's trust fund as startup capital without proper documentation and then claiming the resulting business as solely your own creation could constitute several federal crimes. Lucas whistled low. Securities fraud, tax evasion, possibly wire fraud, if he used any electronic transfers. All of the above, Margaret confirmed, plus Nathan's tax returns for the past 8 years show him claiming the full value of the business without acknowledging any debt to Vanessa's trust. That's fraud on multiple levels. Vanessa felt a grim satisfaction settle in her chest. How long before they act? The investigation could take months, but the preliminary asset freeze could happen within days. Once that begins, Nathan's going to find it very difficult to maintain his current lifestyle. After ending the call with her mother, Vanessa turned her attention to the other screens in her war room. Julian Bennett, Lucas's brother, appeared via video conference from his office at the Wall Street Journal. Vanessa, the exposé is ready to go, Julian said, his journalist's excitement evident even through the computer screen. I verified Nathan's entire origin story, and it's a house of cards. The self-made billionaire narrative falls apart completely when you trace the initial funding back to your trust. What's the headline? Lucas asked with brotherly pride. The fraud behind the fortune. How Nathan Cole built his empire on stolen dreams. Julian replied. It's going to be front page tomorrow, with a full investigation spread inside. I've got documentation of the trust fund transfers, interviews with early employees who remember Vanessa being instrumental in the company's launch, and quotes from business professors about the legal implications of claiming someone else's investment as your own success. Vanessa nodded approvingly. And the human interest angle? I focused on the systemic problem of powerful men taking credit for women's contributions. Julian explained. Nathan becomes a case study in how easy it is to erase a woman's role in business success, especially when divorce and betrayal are involved. It's going to resonate with a lot of readers who've seen similar situations. As the video call ended, Lucas moved to stand behind Vanessa's chair, his hands settling on her shoulders in a gesture of support and solidarity. You know there's no going back after this, he said gently. Once these dominoes start falling, Nathan's world is going to collapse completely. Good, Vanessa replied without hesitation. He destroyed my world 8 years ago while I was pregnant and vulnerable. Now he gets to experience what it feels like to lose everything while everyone watches. And Chloe? Lucas asked. Vanessa's smile was sharp. Chloe will abandon him the moment his credit cards stop working. Women like her don't stick around for the cleanup phase. As if summoned by their conversation, Vanessa's phone buzzed with a notification from her surveillance team. Nathan's marriage was already showing cracks. He had been sleeping in his office for the past week, and Chloe had been seen at lunch with her divorce attorney. Meanwhile, across town, in Nathan's corner office, the first domino was about to fall. Nathan stared at his computer screen in growing horror as the SEC filing notification appeared in his inbox. Aurora Enterprises was formally alleging that Cole Ventures had been built using misappropriated funds, and they had documentation dating back 8 years to prove it. His hands shook as he opened the filing. Every detail of his company's founding was laid out with surgical precision. The $50 million investment from Vanessa's trust that had never been properly documented as a loan, the gradual transfer of assets into his sole name during their marriage, the systematic removal of Vanessa's name from all corporate documents following their divorce. "This can't be happening," Nathan muttered, scrolling through page after page of evidence that painted him as a fraud and a thief. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Cole, there are several reporters in the lobby asking for a statement about something called stolen dreams. Should I send them away?" Nathan's blood turned to ice. If reporters were already here, that meant the story was about to break publicly. His reputation, his business relationships, his entire carefully constructed image was about to be destroyed. "Don't let anyone up," Nathan said frantically, "and get my lawyer on the phone immediately." But even as he spoke, Nathan knew it was too late. Vanessa had planned this assault with military precision, and she had the resources to execute it flawlessly. The SEC investigation would freeze his assets, the media exposure would destroy his reputation, and the legal challenges would cost millions he might not have access to. By evening, Nathan's nightmare had become reality. The Wall Street Journal article was devastating, painting him as a man who had built his fortune on the back of a woman he'd betrayed. His phone rang constantly with calls from investors, business partners, and board members demanding explanations, but it was the call from Chloe that delivered the final blow. "Nathan," her voice was cold and businesslike. Nothing like the sultry tones she usually used. "I've been talking to my attorney, and we think it's best if we separate while you deal with these allegations." Separate? Nathan couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Chloe, this is all just a misunderstanding. The charges won't stick." "The charges?" Chloe's laugh was bitter. "Nathan, I don't care about the charges. I care about my reputation and my future. I can't be married to someone who's being investigated for fraud." "But I love you," Nathan said desperately, the words feeling hollow even as he spoke them. "Love doesn't pay for penthouses and designer clothes," Chloe replied bluntly. "And if you're about to lose everything, then I need to protect myself. I'm moving out tonight." The line went dead, leaving Nathan alone in his office with the wreckage of his life spread across his desk in the form of legal documents and newspaper clippings. Across town, Vanessa was tucking her daughters into bed, reading them a story about a phoenix that rose from the ashes, stronger and more beautiful than before. Lucas sat beside them, adding voices for different characters and making the girls giggle with his dramatic interpretations. "Mama," Noah said sleepily as Vanessa kissed her goodnight, "did the phoenix hurt the people who tried to burn her?" "No, sweetheart," Vanessa replied softly. "The phoenix didn't need to hurt anyone. She just showed them that they couldn't destroy something that was meant to soar." As Vanessa and Lucas left the children's room, Lucas pulled her into his arms, his love and admiration evident in every touch. "How does it feel?" he asked, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Getting justice after all these years? Like finally being able to breathe again?" Vanessa replied honestly, "But this is just the beginning. Nathan's going to lose everything, and he's going to understand exactly what he threw away when he chose greed over love." Outside their penthouse windows, Manhattan glittered like a battlefield where Vanessa Reed had just won the first major victory in a war 8 years in the making. The empire built on ashes was about to crumble, and from its ruins, justice would finally rise. Chapter 7. A Father's Desperation. Nathan's Porsche felt like a prison as he sat in Sterling Preparatory Academy's parking lot, watching other parents collect their children with casual ease, people whose lives weren't imploding. 2 weeks had passed since the SEC investigation became public, and Nathan's world crumbled faster than he could comprehend. Assets frozen, business under federal investigation, Chloe filing for divorce. But none of that mattered compared to the 3 little girls about to walk out those doors. She's daughters, who had no idea their biological father was desperately watching from the shadows. At 3:15 p.m., the school doors opened. Nathan's heart clenched when he spotted them. Lila, with her serious expression. Ivy, with paint stains on her uniform. Noah, practically bouncing, as she animatedly told her sisters something requiring extensive hand gestures. They were beautiful, perfect, everything he had lost and never known he'd been missing. Lucas's Range Rover pulled into the pickup lane, and Nathan watched his daughters' faces light up like Christmas morning. "Papa Lucas." Noah's voice carried across the parking lot as she broke into a run, launching herself into Lucas's arms with complete trust. "We're going to build rockets next week, and I want mine purple with silver flames." Lucas spun her around, laughing. "Purple with silver flames sounds perfect. Little warrior." Lila stepped forward with a frown. "Papa, there's a man in the parking lot who's been watching us." "Mrs. Henderson asked me if I knew who he was. Nathan's blood turned to ice. His 7-year-old daughter had not only noticed his surveillance but reported it to school officials. Lucas's demeanor shifted immediately. Military training evident as he assessed threats, his eyes scanned until they landed on Nathan's Porsche. "Girls," Lucas said calmly. "Get in the car. Seatbelts on. Is everything okay, Papa?" Ivy asked, sensing the tension. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Lucas assured her, reaching for his phone as the children climbed into the Range Rover. Nathan made an impulsive decision. Instead of driving away, he got out and walked toward Lucas's vehicle. "Mr. Bennett," Nathan called out, desperation undisguised in his voice. "Wait. Please. I just want to talk to them for a minute." Lucas positioned himself between Nathan and the car, his stance protective and unmistakably threatening. "Get back in your car and drive away, Cole." "No. They're my daughters," Nathan said, his voice breaking. "I just want to meet them properly. I want them to know who I am." "They know who their father is," Lucas replied coldly. "And it isn't you." Through the car windows, Nathan could see 3 faces watching with confusion and alarm. Lila was whispering to her sisters. Ivy looked scared. Noah looked angry, protective instincts inherited from her mother already activating. "Please," Nathan begged. "Just 5 minutes. Let me introduce myself." "Let you what?" Lucas's voice was dangerously quiet. "Confuse and traumatize 3 children because you're having a midlife crisis? I'm their biological father," Nathan shouted. "Biology doesn't make you a father," Lucas replied. "Being there makes you a father. You're nothing to them but a stranger who's been stalking them." Nathan could see Noah rolling down her window, her 7-year-old voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. "Papa Lucas, who is that man? Why is he yelling at you?" Lucas immediately softened his voice. "Just someone who's confused, Princess. Papa's handling it. Should I call Mama?" Noah asked, her hand already reaching for the phone Lucas had given her for emergencies. "Not yet, sweetheart. Just stay in the car with your sisters, okay?" Nathan felt like he was dying inside. His daughter, his own flesh and blood, was talking about calling Vanessa because a stranger was bothering her Papa Lucas. To Noah, Nathan wasn't a potential father or family member. He was a threat to be managed. "I can give them things," Nathan said desperately. "I can provide for them. I have money, connections, opportunities." Had Lucas corrected? "According to the news, you had money. Now you're under federal investigation for fraud, and your wife is divorcing you. What exactly do you think you can offer 3 children who already have everything they need?" The truth of Lucas's words hit Nathan like a physical blow. He had nothing to offer his daughters except chaos and confusion. His empire was crumbling, his reputation was destroyed, and his personal life was a disaster. Meanwhile, Lucas could offer them stability, love, and security. "I can change," Nathan said, hearing the pathetic desperation in his own voice. "I can be better. I can be the father they deserve." "Where was that commitment 8 years ago when they needed you?" Lucas asked. "Where was that dedication when their mother was dying in childbirth? Where was that paternal instinct when they were fighting for their lives in the NICU?" Each question was like a knife to Nathan's soul, because they all had the same answer. He hadn't been there. He had been in the Maldives, honeymooning with Chloe, while his daughters struggled to survive and their mother recovered from nearly dying to bring them into the world. "I didn't know," Nathan started. "Because you didn't want to know," Lucas cut him off. "You made your choice 8 years ago. You chose your own selfish desires over your family's welfare. You don't get to change your mind now that it's convenient for you." "Papa Lucas," Lila's voice was small and worried. "Is that man going to hurt us?" The question shattered Nathan's heart into a million pieces. His own daughter was asking if her biological father was going to hurt her family, the family that he should have been part of but had thrown away for a shallow woman and temporary pleasure. "No, sweetheart," Lucas assured her, never taking his eyes off Nathan. "No one is going to hurt our family. I promise." Nathan noticed the emphasis on our family, a unit that explicitly didn't include him. He was an outsider, a threat, a problem to be solved. "I'll stay away from the school," Nathan said finally, the words torn from his soul. "But I want visitation rights. I want legal recognition as their father." Lucas's smile was sharp and humorless. "You signed away your parental rights as part of your divorce settlement, remember? You legally abandoned 3 unborn children because you thought Chloe was a better investment. I can challenge that. I can get a lawyer." "With what money?" Lucas asked brutally. "Your assets are frozen, your wife is divorcing you, and you're about to be indicted for federal crimes. Even if you could afford a lawyer, What judge is going to award custody to a man who's under investigation for fraud? Nathan's phone rang, adding insult to injury. Chloe's name appeared on the screen, probably calling to inform him of some new indignity she was inflicting through her divorce attorney. Answer it, Lucas suggested coldly. I'm sure your wife has some more good news about your crumbling life. Nathan declined the call, but the damage was done. He was a man with no money, no reputation, no family, and no future, trying to claim children who were happy and secure without him. I love them, Nathan whispered, the words barely audible. No, Lucas replied firmly. You love the idea of them. You love the potential they represent for redeeming your failures, but you don't know them well enough to love them. You don't know that Lila wants to be a CEO like her mother, or that Ivy paints pictures of our family every week, or that Noah wants to be a superhero so she can protect people, like I protected their mother. Each detail was another reminder of how much Nathan had missed, how much Lucas knew about Nathan's own children that Nathan himself would never learn. Please, Nathan tried one last time, just let me tell them who I am. Let me explain. Explain what? Lucas's voice was cold as Arctic wind. Explain that you abandoned their mother when she was pregnant? Explain that you chose another woman over them before they were even born? Explain that you've spent 8 years ignoring their existence until it became convenient to remember them? Nathan had no answer, because there was no good answer. Everything Lucas was saying was true, and the truth was damning. Stay away from my family, Cole, Lucas said, moving back toward his car. If I see you near my daughters again, I'll have you arrested for stalking. And trust me, with your current legal problems, you can't afford to add more charges. As Lucas drove away with Nathan's daughter's daughters who called another man Papa and looked to another man for protection, Nathan stood alone in the parking lot, feeling more lost and broken than he had ever felt in his life. His phone rang again. This time his lawyer, probably calling to deliver more bad news about the SEC investigation or Chloe's divorce proceedings. Nathan declined that call too and climbed back into his Porsche, surrounded by the wreckage of the life he had built on stolen dreams. For the first time since this nightmare began, Nathan truly understood what he had lost. Not just money or reputation or a business empire, but 3 beautiful daughters who would grow up calling another man Papa, who would walk down wedding aisles without him, who would give their own children a grandfather's love that he would never earn. He had gambled his family for temporary pleasure and shallow ambition, and he had lost everything that mattered. Now he was just a stranger in a parking lot, watching the life he could have had drive away in someone else's car. Chapter 8. The Unraveling. Federal marshals arrived at Cole Ventures at exactly 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday that would mark Nathan's empire's complete destruction. Nathan watched from his corner office window as they placed asset seizure notices on the building's front doors, officially freezing everything he thought he owned. Employees gathered in clusters, whispering and pointing, faces showing the shock and vindication that comes when watching a tyrant fall. Nathan's hands shook as he poured another scotch, though it was barely past breakfast. The past month had been a relentless avalanche of legal disasters, media humiliation, and personal betrayals. The SEC investigation had uncovered not just the misappropriation of Vanessa's trust fund, but a pattern of financial irregularities that painted Nathan as either criminally incompetent or deliberately fraudulent. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Cole, his assistant's voice trembled. The FBI agents are here. They're asking for you to come down to the lobby. Nathan closed his eyes, savoring what he knew would be his last moments in the office that had once been his kingdom. The corner office with its panoramic Manhattan view, the mahogany desk where he had signed million-dollar deals, the wall of awards that had fed his ego for 8 years, all built on Vanessa's stolen dreams foundation. Tell them I'll be right down, Nathan said, his voice hollow. The FBI agents were professional but implacable. Agent Emily Wong, a stern woman in her 40s, read Nathan his rights with mechanical precision born of countless repetitions. The charges were extensive: securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Each count carrying years in federal prison. Mr. Cole, you have the right to remain silent. Agent Wong continued as handcuffs clicked around Nathan's wrists. Anything you say can and will be used against you. As Nathan was led through the lobby in handcuffs, past employees who had once respected and feared him, he thought about Vanessa's promise weeks ago. You'll discover exactly how much power a woman scorned can wield when she has nothing left to lose. She had kept her word with devastating precision. The media circus outside was a feeding frenzy. Reporters shouted questions, photographers captured Nathan's humiliating perp walk, and news helicopters circled overhead like vultures. Nathan's fall from grace was playing out in real time on every major network. The headline on the New York Post delivered the final blow to his pride. Self-made fraud. Fallen CEO built empire on stolen love. Bail was set at $10 million, money Nathan no longer had access to. His frozen assets made him effectively indigent, and no bail bondsman would touch federal fraud charges. Nathan spent his first night in 20 years in a jail cell. Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel suite, Chloe was having the time of her life. Darling, she purred into her phone, speaking to her divorce attorney while getting a manicure. Make sure you emphasize how shocked I am by Nathan's criminal behavior. I had no idea about any financial irregularities. The truth was, Chloe had known exactly what kind of man Nathan was when she'd seduced him away from Vanessa. She had simply calculated that being Mrs. Nathan Cole was worth the risk of eventually being discarded. But Chloe was a survivor. The moment Nathan's empire started crumbling, she had activated her exit strategy. Her affair with Victor Sterling, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, had been going on for 6 months. Insurance for when Nathan's luck ran out. I want half of everything that isn't seized by the government, Chloe continued. The house in the Hamptons, the art collection, whatever they can't prove was purchased with fraudulent money. Chloe's phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Please come see me. I need to explain everything. I love you. She deleted the message without reading it completely. Love was a luxury Chloe had never been able to afford. That evening, while Nathan sat in his jail cell and Chloe planned her new life, Lucas was giving Lila, Ivy, and Noah their baths, listening to their chatter about school and friends and the 1,000 small joys that made up a child's world. Papa Lucas, Noah said seriously, as Lucas helped her wash her hair. Why was that man at our school so sad? Lucas paused, considering how to answer. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people, and sometimes those choices have consequences that make the grown-ups very sad. Did he hurt Mama? Lila asked with typical directness. A long time ago, yes, Lucas said carefully. Before you were born, that man made choices that hurt her very much. But Mama's not sad anymore, Ivy observed. She smiles all the time now, especially when you're here. Lucas's heart swelled with love for these 3 remarkable children who had become his daughters in every way that mattered. That's right, sweetheart. Your Mama is happy now because we have our family, and nothing can change that. Good, Noah declared with finality. Because we don't need any more family. We have you and Mama and each other. That's enough. More than enough. Lucas thought as he tucked them into their beds later. It's everything. In the master bedroom, Vanessa stood at the window, looking out at the city that had once been her battlefield and was now her kingdom. The news was reporting Nathan's arrest on every channel, complete with footage of him being led away in handcuffs. She should have felt satisfaction, triumph, vindication for 8 years of pain and struggle. Instead, she felt empty. Lucas appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. How do you feel? He asked softly. Like it's over, Vanessa replied, leaning into his warmth. I thought I would feel more victorious, but mostly I just feel tired. Revenge is exhausting, Lucas observed, even when it's justified. Do you think I went too far? Vanessa asked. Lucas turned her in his arms, his blue eyes serious and loving. I think you did exactly what needed to be done. Nathan Cole built his life on stolen dreams and abandoned responsibilities. You gave him consequences that matched his actions. Marry me, Lucas whispered against her lips, the proposal sudden but not surprising. I thought you'd never ask. Vanessa laughed, tears of joy mixing with exhaustion. Tomorrow, Lucas said urgently. Let's get married tomorrow. I don't want to wait another day to call you my wife officially. As they held each other, high above Manhattan, Nathan sat in his jail cell, finally understanding the true cost of his choices. He had traded a woman who loved him unconditionally for a woman who loved only his money. He had traded 3 beautiful daughters for fleeting satisfaction. He had traded a real family for the hollow success of an empire built on lies. The unraveling was complete. All that remained was learning to live with the consequences. Chapter 9. Hearts in the Balance. The beach house in the Hamptons had always been Vanessa's sanctuary. But tonight it felt like the most romantic place on earth. Lucas had suggested they escape Manhattan's chaos for the weekend, bringing the children to the coastal retreat where Vanessa had spent childhood summers. Now, as sunset painted the sky in pink and gold over the Atlantic, Lucas was down on one knee in the sand, while Lila, Ivy, and Noah giggled behind beach grass, where they thought they were hiding. "Vanessa Reed," Lucas said, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his blue eyes. "You and your daughters saved my life in ways you'll never fully understand. You taught me that love isn't something you fall into. It's something you choose every single day." The ring box in his hands contained a stunning vintage Art Deco diamond that had belonged to his grandmother. But Vanessa's eyes were fixed on Lucas's face, memorizing every detail of this perfect moment. "I choose you," Lucas continued. "Not because you're perfect, but because you're perfectly right for me. I choose Lila's brilliant mind and fierce determination. I choose Ivy's artistic soul and gentle heart. I choose Noah's warrior spirit and boundless courage. I choose our family, our future, and our forever." "Say yes, Mama," Noah shouted from behind the beach grass, making all three girls dissolve into giggles. "We helped Papa pick the ring," Lila added, abandoning all pretense of hiding. "And we planned the whole proposal," Ivy chimed in, her romantic nature clearly delighted. Vanessa laughed through her tears as the three most important people in her world surrounded them on the beach. "Did you all conspire against me?" "It was Noah's idea," Lucas admitted, pulling their youngest daughter into his lap while still kneeling in the sand. "She said you deserved a proposal that included your whole family. Because families stick together," Noah declared seriously, "and you're already our papa in our hearts. So we just need the papers to make it official." Vanessa looked at this perfect Sini, the man she loved more than breathing, the children who had given her purpose when she had nothing left, to the beach, where she had dreamed of happiness as a lonely child and felt her heart expand with joy. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Lucas Bennett, yes, to all of it." Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger as their daughters cheered, then pulled her down into the sand for a kiss that tasted like salt air and infinite possibilities. That night, after the children were asleep, Lucas and Vanessa sat on the deck, sharing champagne and watching the moon's reflection dance on the waves. "I love you," Vanessa said softly. "I love the way you love our daughters. I love the way you make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable." "Even with Nathan?" Lucas asked gently, knowing this conversation was needed. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if Nathan deserves my forgiveness, but I know I deserve peace, and I can't have peace while carrying this much anger." But 3 days later, when they returned to Manhattan, Nathan did exactly what Lucas had predicted. The letter was waiting in Vanessa's office, hand-delivered by courier. Nathan's familiar handwriting made her stomach clench with remembered pain, but she opened it anyway. "Vanessa, I know I have no right to write to you and even less right to ask forgiveness. But I'm writing anyway because I finally understand what I lost when I walked away from you and our children. I've had time to think in here, and I realize everything good in my life came from you. Your love, your money, your family's connections, your unwavering belief in my potential. You gave me everything, and I threw it away for something worthless. I can't undo the damage I've caused. I can't erase the pain I put you through, or the years I missed with our daughters, but I'm begging for a chance to try making amends. I love you, Vanessa. I loved you then, I love you now, and I'll love you for the rest of my life." What I felt for Chloe wasn't love. It was ego and weakness, and the foolish belief that I deserved something better than what I already had. Our daughters are beautiful and brilliant, and they deserve to know their biological father, not to replace Lucas. I can see that he's been the father I should have been, but to understand their complete history, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. I'll serve my time. I'll give up any claim to my former assets. I'll sign whatever legal documents you want. But please give me a chance to prove that I can be the man you once believed I was. All my love, Nathan. P.S. I heard about your engagement. Lucas is a lucky man, and I hope he knows what a treasure he's gaining. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Vanessa read the letter twice, then set it aside and stared out at the Manhattan skyline. Nathan's words had stirred up emotions she thought she had buried. "Mama?" Lila's voice came from the doorway. "Is everything okay? You look sad." Vanessa quickly composed herself, smiling at her eldest daughter. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about some grown-up things." Lila climbed into Vanessa's lap. "Is it about the man from our school? The one who made Papa Lucas upset?" "Yes, it's about him. He wrote me a letter." "What did he say?" "He said he was sorry for hurting our family," Vanessa replied carefully, "and he asked if he could be part of our lives." Lila was quiet, processing this with the seriousness of a tiny adult. "Do you want him to be part of our lives?" "I don't know," Vanessa admitted honestly. "What do you think?" "I think," Lila said slowly, that we already have a complete family. Papa Lucas takes care of us, loves us, and shows up every single day. This other man only showed up after everything was good already. That's very wise, baby girl. But, Lila continued, if he's really sorry and really wants to be better, maybe he could start by being a better person without us. Mama, you taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you again. Vanessa hugged her daughter tighter, amazed by the wisdom in such a young mind. You're absolutely right. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger, not about giving people permission to hurt you again. That evening, when Lucas came home from work, he found Vanessa in their bedroom, staring at Nathan's letter. Without a word, he read it over her shoulder, then set it aside and pulled her into his arms. What are you thinking? He asked softly. I'm thinking that I feel sorry for him, Vanessa replied honestly. Not sorry enough to forgive him or give him another chance, but sorry that he destroyed his own life so completely. And I'm thinking that I'm grateful he showed me his true nature 8 years ago, before I wasted more of my life on someone who wasn't worthy of it. Lucas smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. I love your compassionate heart, but I also love that you're not letting it override your common sense. I'm going to write him back, Vanessa decided. One final letter to close this chapter forever. What will you say? Vanessa looked up at the man who had saved her in every way possible, who loved her children as if they were his own, who had proven every single day that real love was about choice, not just feeling. I'm going to tell him the truth, she said, that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, that being sorry doesn't undo the damage, and that some chances, once lost, are lost forever. And then, I'm going to marry you, and focus on the family we've built together, the family that chose each other and fought for each other, and proved that love is stronger than betrayal. Lucas kissed her then, pouring all his love and commitment into the connection between them. Outside their bedroom windows, Manhattan sparkled with possibility, and in the rooms down the hall, 3 beautiful little girls slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were loved unconditionally by the parents who had chosen them. Tomorrow, Vanessa would write her final letter to Nathan Cole. Tonight, she would plan her wedding to Lucas Bennett and dream about the beautiful future they were building together. The balance had tipped decisively toward love, and nothing would ever tip it back. Chapter 10. Love Conquers All. Vanessa's final letter to Nathan was shorter than his desperate plea, but infinitely more powerful in its quiet finality. Nathan, I received your letter, and I want you to know that I forgive you not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I refuse to poison my happiness any longer. However, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You made your choice 8 years ago when you abandoned your pregnant wife for temporary pleasure. You made it again when you signed away your parental rights. You made it every day for 8 years when you never once tried to find us or ask about the children you left behind. Lila, Ivy, and Noah have a father. His name is Lucas Bennett, and he has earned that title through 8 years of love, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. He was there for their first steps, first words, first day of school, and every single day in between. He chose them when they were not his biological children, loved them when they had nothing to offer him but their pure hearts. You contributed DNA. He contributed everything else that matters. I will tell our daughters about you when they're old enough to understand, but I will also tell them that family is not about biology, it's about choice, commitment, and love. You forfeited your right to choose them when you chose yourself instead. Don't contact us again. Build a better life for yourself, but build it somewhere else, with someone else. We are complete without you. Goodbye, Nathan. Vanessa Bennett soon. 2 weeks later, that same letter would be read aloud in a federal courtroom as part of Nathan's sentencing hearing. But by then, Vanessa would be too busy being blissfully happy to care about Nathan's legal fate. The conversation with the children happened on a Sunday morning, while Lucas was making pancakes and the girls were still in their pajamas, curled up with Vanessa on the couch. I need to tell you something important, Vanessa began, her voice gentle but serious enough to capture their attention. Do you remember the man who was at your school? The one who upset Papa Lucas? The sad man, Ivy said immediately. He felt angry and sad and desperate. That's right, baby girl. That man's name is Nathan Cole, and he's your biological father. The silence that followed was profound. Lila processed this with her typical analytical approach, while Ivy looked confused, and Noah's face scrunched up in indignation. What does that mean, exactly? Lila asked carefully. It means that before you were born, before I met Papa Lucas, I was married to Nathan, He helped create you three, but then he left us before you were born because he was scared and selfish and not ready to be a father. But Papa Lucas chose us, Lila said firmly, understanding immediately. Even though we weren't his biological children, he chose to be our father. Exactly, Vanessa confirmed. Papa Lucas is your real father because he's the one who has loved you and taken care of you every single day. Biology doesn't make someone a parent, love does. Does this mean we have to see the sad man? Ivy asked worriedly. No, sweetheart. You never have to see him if you don't want to. He's not part of our family anymore. Good, Noah declared, standing up on the couch, hands on her hips, because Papa Lucas is our real daddy, and we don't need anyone else. Lucas appeared in the doorway with heart-shaped pancakes, his eyes soft with love as he listened to his daughters defend their family unit. That's right, little warrior, he said, gathering them close. I may not have helped create you, but I choose to love you every single day. That's what makes me your papa, forever and always. Forever and always? Lila asked, needing reassurance. Forever and always, Lucas promised solemnly. Nothing will ever change that. 3 weeks later, on a perfect June morning at the Hamptons Beach House, Vanessa Reed became Mrs. Lucas Bennett in a ceremony that was everything she dreamed of and nothing like her first wedding's elaborate production. The setup was simple but magical. White chairs arranged in rows on sand, with a hydrangea, and rose arch that Ivy had helped design. The guest list was intimate. Judge Margaret Reed, Julian Bennett, Harold Vanderbilt, and close friends, plus 3 most important wedding guests who were practically vibrating with excitement. Lila wore a sophisticated navy dress and carried a small bouquet while serving as maid of honor. Ivy had painted all the programs by hand and wore a flowing pink dress that made her look like a fairy princess. Noah, true to her nature, wore a purple dress with a superhero cape underneath for emergencies and carried the rings on a pillow she had bedazzled herself. Lucas stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored gray suit, but his eyes were only for Vanessa as she walked down the sandy aisle. She wore a simple but stunning champagne-colored dress that flowed in the ocean breeze, her hair adorned with the same hydrangeas that decorated the arch. When Judge Margaret asked who gave this woman to be married, Noah shouted, "We do," before anyone else could answer, making the entire wedding party dissolve into laughter. The vows Lucas and Vanessa had written themselves were simple but profound. "I promise to choose you every day," Vanessa said, her voice clear and strong, "not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. I promise to love not just you, but the family we've built together. I promise to never take for granted the gift of second chances and true love. I promise to be the husband you deserve and the father our daughters need," Lucas replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to protect this family with everything I have. I promise to show our daughters every day what real love looks like, so they'll never settle for anything less." When Judge Margaret pronounced them husband and wife, their first kiss as a married couple was interrupted by 3 little girls launching themselves into their parents' arms, creating a group hug that perfectly symbolized their unbreakable family bond. The reception was held on the beach house deck, with twinkling lights strung between the posts and a cake that Ivy had insisted be decorated with edible flowers. Lucas's best man speech was delivered by Julian Bennett, who told stories about watching his brother fall completely in love with not just Vanessa, but with the idea of being a father. Vanessa's matron of honor speech was given by Lila, who had prepared remarks about how families are built with love, not just genetics. As the sun set over the Atlantic and the children played with sparklers on the beach, Lucas and Vanessa danced to their first song as husband and wife. They were so lost in each other that they didn't notice the figure standing on the public beach access about 100 yards away, partially hidden behind the sand dunes. Nathan had been released on bail pending his sentencing, and against every piece of legal advice he had received, he had driven to the Hamptons. He told himself he just wanted to see his daughters one more time, to witness their happiness from afar, to understand what he had lost. What he saw destroyed him completely. Through his binoculars, Nathan watched Vanessa dance with her new husband, radiant with joy in a way she had never been with him. Even during their happiest moments, he watched Lucas spin their daughters around the dance floor, their laughter carrying on the ocean breeze. He watched a family celebration that was everything he had once imagined having but had thrown away for temporary pleasure and shallow ambition. The children looked nothing like the struggling, impoverished family he had pictured in his mind during his worst moments. They were confident, happy, secure children who were deeply loved and who loved fiercely in return. Lila had grown into a serious, intelligent young lady who would clearly be a force to be reckoned with someday. Ivy was an ethereal little artist whose gentle nature was balanced by obvious inner strength. Noah was a tiny warrior who would protect her family with the fierce loyalty she had inherited from her mother. They were perfect. They were everything Nathan had dreamed of having with Vanessa, and they belonged completely to another man. As Nathan watched Lucas lift Vanessa in his arms while their daughters cheered and clapped,